Dr. Vincent Harlow had earned his reputation through years of grueling study and flawless execution in the operating theatre. As chief surgeon at Riverside Medical Center, he commanded respect from every corner of the hospital. His hands had saved countless lives, and his confidence had grown with each successful procedure. But confidence, left unchecked, can curdle into something darker. It was a Tuesday evening when Vincent stayed late to review patient charts. The administrative wing had emptied hours ago, leaving only the skeleton crew of night shift workers. As he walked toward the parking garage, he noticed a maintenance worker mopping the hallway, a man named Marcus Reid, whose dark skin glistened with sweat under the fluorescent lights. Vincent stopped, a cruel idea forming in his mind. He'd been watching mixed martial arts videos lately, imagining himself in the cage despite never having trained a day in combat sports. "You there," Vincent called out, his voice dripping with casual arrogance. "You look like you can handle yourself." Marcus paused, leaning on his mop. "Excuse me. I'm saying you've got the build for a fight. I've been studying Brazilian jiu-jitsu techniques online." Vincent rolled up his sleeves theatrically. "Care to go a few rounds? Just for fun. Right here, right now." Marcus's jaw tightened. He recognized the tone, that particular blend of privilege and ignorance that assumed he should be grateful for the attention. "I'm working, doctor. And I'm not interested in fighting anyone." "Come on," Vincent pressed, stepping closer. "What's the harm? You're probably natural at this stuff. I'll go easy on you." His smile was condescending, his posture loose with the certainty that this man couldn't possibly refuse someone of his status. "I said no." Marcus's voice was firm but controlled. "I have work to finish." Vincent laughed, a sharp bark that echoed off the sterile walls. "Figures. All talk, no action. That's fine. I wouldn't want to embarrass you anyway." He turned on his heel and strutted away, leaving Marcus standing in the hallway with his cleaning supplies. What Vincent didn't know was that Marcus Reid had a past he rarely spoke about. Before becoming a maintenance worker, before the injury that ended his career, Marcus had been a ranked middleweight boxer with a professional record of 23-2. He'd fought on regional circuits, earned respect in gyms across 3 states, and had been 2 fights away from a title shot when a car accident shattered his left knee. The surgery had saved his leg, but ended his boxing dreams. Marcus had made peace with his new life. He found dignity in honest work, in providing for his daughter's college education, in the quiet satisfaction of a clean building. But Vincent's words stung in a way that surprised him. Not because they were true, but because they revealed how invisible his real self had become. The incident might have ended there, forgotten within days. But Vincent's ego wouldn't let it rest. Over the next week, he made snide comments whenever he saw Marcus in the hallways. "Still afraid to throw a punch," he'd say with a smirk. "Probably for the best. Wouldn't want you to hurt yourself." The other hospital staff began to notice. Some looked away uncomfortably, others whispered behind hands. Marcus endured it all with the same quiet dignity, but inside, something was shifting. On Friday afternoon, Dr. Patricia Chen, a colleague of Vincent's, caught up with Marcus in the stairwell. "I'm sorry about Vincent," she said softly. "He's been insufferable lately. Someone needs to humble him." Marcus shrugged. "People like that usually humble themselves eventually." Patricia hesitated, then spoke again. "You know, there's a hospital charity event next month. A fundraising gala for the children's wing. They always have some kind of entertainment. Last year it was a dance competition among staff." She paused meaningfully. "This year, they're talking about a friendly boxing exhibition. Maybe you should volunteer." Marcus met her eyes and saw the quiet encouragement there. "I'll think about it." The weeks that followed were a study in contrasts. Vincent continued his peacocking, bragging to anyone who'd listen about his combat training, which consisted entirely of YouTube videos and one trial class at a McDojo downtown. He began talking openly about participating in the charity boxing event, painting himself as a warrior philanthropist. Meanwhile, Marcus said nothing. But every morning before his shift, he drove to his old gym on the east side of town. The owner, Coach Williams, nearly wept when Marcus walked through the door for the first time in 3 years. "Just want to get back in shape," Marcus said simply. Coach Williams knew better than to push. He watched as Marcus worked through the fundamentals, the jab, the cross, the footwork that was like a language his body had never forgotten. The knee was weaker now, but Marcus adapted, learning to pivot differently, to compensate with upper body movement. Word spread quietly through the hospital's underground network, the nurses, the orderlies, the people who actually kept the place running while doctors claimed the glory. Everyone knew what Vincent had done. Everyone knew Marcus was training. And everyone agreed to keep it quiet. The night of the charity gala arrived with all the pageantry the hospital board could muster. The grand ballroom of the Riverside Hotel glittered with evening gowns and tuxedos. A regulation boxing ring had been set up in the center, surrounded by round tables where donors sipped champagne and pretended the spectacle of doctors fighting for entertainment was somehow dignified, Vincent arrived fashionably late, wearing custom boxing shorts with his name embroidered in gold thread. He shadowboxed for the cameras, his movements clumsy but enthusiastic. Several of his surgeon friends clapped him on the back. Feeding his delusion, Marcus arrived in simple black shorts and a plain white t-shirt. No fanfare, no entrance music. He slipped through the side door and began warming up in a corner, his movements economical and precise. When the announcer introduced the fighters, the room fell into an expectant hush. In the blue corner, weighing in at 205 pounds, Chief Surgeon Dr. Vincent Harlow. Applause erupted from half the room, mostly administrators and senior physicians. And in the red corner, weighing in at 198 pounds, from the facilities department, Marcus Reid. The applause from the other half was quieter, but more knowing. The nurses exchanged glances. The maintenance crew leaned forward in their seats. Vincent strutted to the center of the ring, still shadowboxing, still grinning. Marcus approached calmly, touched gloves perfunctorily, and returned to his corner. The referee, a retired boxing judge volunteering for the event, gave the instructions. This is a 3-round exhibition. Keep it clean, protect yourselves at all times. Touch gloves and come out fighting. The bell rang. For the first 30 seconds, Vincent did what he'd practiced. He circled, threw a few probing jabs, and tried to look formidable. His punches cut the air a foot away from Marcus, who moved with the unhurried grace of someone reading a familiar book. Then Vincent committed. He lunged forward with a wild overhand right, the kind of punch that looks devastating in movies, but leaves you completely exposed in real life. Marcus slipped it effortlessly, his head moving 3 inches to the left. Before Vincent could recover his balance, Marcus's left jab snapped out, not hard, just enough to flick Vincent's head back. Then another. Then a crisp right cross that caught Vincent flush on the cheek. Vincent stumbled backward, his eyes wide with shock. The crowd gasped. Is that all you've got? Vincent tried to sound tough, but his voice cracked. Marcus said nothing. He simply advanced, his feet moving in the classic boxer's rhythm. Jab, jab, slip, cross. Each punch was a lesson in control, hard enough to hurt, precise enough to humiliate, measured enough to avoid causing real injury. Vincent swung wildly, desperately, his training evaporating under pressure. He looked like a man drowning in deep water, thrashing with no technique, no strategy, no hope. Marcus picked him apart with surgical precision, an irony not lost on the watching crowd. By the end of the first round, Vincent's face was red and swelling. He slumped on his stool, gasping, while his corner, 2 surgical residents who'd never been in a real fight, frantically fanned him and offered useless advice. Marcus sat calmly, barely breathing hard, sipping water. The second round lasted less than a minute. Marcus came out patient, professional, and utterly in control. He worked the body with short, punishing shots that drove the air from Vincent's lungs. When Vincent dropped his hands to protect his ribs, Marcus went upstairs. A perfect 3-punch combination that snapped Vincent's head back and sent his mouthguard flying. Vincent collapsed to one knee, holding up his glove in surrender. The referee stopped the fight immediately. The crowd erupted, half in shocked silence, half in raucous celebration. In the aftermath, as medical staff checked Vincent over, pride wounded worse than anything else, the truth began to emerge. Someone had pulled up Marcus's old boxing records on their phone. The photos and fight videos spread through the crowd like wildfire. 23-2. He was ranked 6th in the region. He fought Jackson Miller and won by knockout. Vincent sat in his corner, ice pack pressed to his face, and finally understood the magnitude of his mistake. He'd seen a black man with a mop and assumed weakness. He'd seen working-class clothes and assumed ignorance. He'd seen humility and assumed it was fear. Patricia Chen approached him, her expression unreadable. You know what the sad part is, Vincent? Marcus never wanted this. You pushed and pushed until he had no choice but to show you who he really was. And you still learned nothing until it was too late. The following Monday, Marcus arrived for his shift to find his locker cleaned out. For one terrible moment, he thought he'd been fired, that Vincent had used his influence for revenge. But then he found the note directing him to the hospital administrator's office. Inside, the CEO, Margaret Foster, sat behind her desk with an unexpected smile. Mr. Reid, please sit. I'll get straight to the point. Your performance at the charity event raised more money than any entertainment we've had in 5 years. More importantly, it raised questions about how we recognize talent and character in our staff. She slid a folder across the desk. We'd like to offer you a position as coordinator of our new hospital wellness program. Better pay, benefits, and you'd be working with staff on fitness, stress management, and personal safety training. Interested? Marcus opened the folder, his hands trembling slightly. Yes. Yes, I'm interested. Good. Because we also need someone who can teach our hotshot doctors some humility. Margaret's smile turned knowing. Think you can handle that? For the first time in weeks, Marcus laughed. I can certainly try. As for Vincent, the hospital board mandated a 6-month period of sensitivity training and community service. He was assigned to shadow various support staff, including maintenance workers, to understand the skills and dedication required for their jobs. It was humiliating at first, designed to be so. But somewhere in the middle of his 3rd week mopping floors alongside the night crew, something shifted. He began to listen to their stories. He learned that the woman who cleaned the operating theaters had a master's degree in biology from her home country, credentials that didn't transfer. He discovered that the elderly janitor he'd passed countless times was a Korean War veteran with a Purple Heart. He realized that the young man, who emptied trash bins, was putting himself through nursing school on the night shift. One evening, 6 months after the fight, Vincent found Marcus in the hospital gym, training a group of nurses in basic self-defense. Can I talk to you? Vincent asked quietly. Marcus nodded, excusing himself from the class. They walked to a quiet corner. I wanted to apologize, Vincent began, the words clearly difficult. Not just for the fight, but for everything that led up to it. I looked at you and only saw what I expected to see. I made assumptions based on your job, your race, everything except who you actually were. That was wrong. It was ignorant, and it was cruel. Marcus studied him for a long moment. You know what the hardest part was? Not the insults. I've dealt with worse. It was that you thought so little of me that you couldn't even imagine I might have a story worth knowing. You reduced me to a prop in your ego trip. I know. And I can't undo it. But I'm trying to do better. Vincent hesitated. For what it's worth, I've learned more in 6 months of sensitivity training than in 4 years of medical school. About people. About respect. About checking my privilege at the door. That's a start, Marcus said. Just a start. They shook hands, not as fighter and defeated opponent, but as 2 men acknowledging a shared humanity they'd both forgotten for a time. The story spread beyond Riverside Medical Center, as these stories do. It appeared on local news, then social media, then in think pieces about workplace dynamics and unconscious bias. But the real impact was smaller, more personal. A month later, Marcus's daughter, Alicia, came home from college for winter break. Over dinner, she asked about the viral video she'd seen of her father boxing some doctor. Marcus told her the whole story, from beginning to end, not glossing over the ugly parts. So what did you learn from all this? Alicia asked, in the way children sometimes ask questions that cut straight to the truth. Marcus thought for a long moment. I learned that dignity doesn't require recognition, but recognition is still good when it comes. I learned that you can be humble without being invisible. And I learned that sometimes the best way to teach someone respect is to remind them, gently but firmly, that they don't know everything. Alicia smiled. Pretty good lessons for one fight. The best lessons usually hurt a little, Marcus replied, then grinned. For both people involved. Outside, snow was beginning to fall on the city, covering the streets in a clean white layer that would melt by morning but which, for now, made everything look new.